Welcome to the future.
Welcome to the Muxall Open Internet of Things video blog, number 2. Today we're going to be talking about setting up a GitHub file repository for the Muxall movement hardware files and software files, okay? So I just wanted to point out this is not a GitHub repo layout tutorial, all right? And the reason why is repo layouts can vary from owner to owner on GitHub. Okay, for example, one repo for each project. You can have one repo for each project, or you can have one repo for many projects. All right, and that's kind of the way I'm setting it up. You'll see later. And you can also have multiple root projects. Or you can have one root project with multiple sub-projects, kind of like subfolders in a file directory, okay? So, and that's why I didn't say this is a tutorial, because it varies on how you set up your repository, right? Okay, so what is this video about then? You might be asking, right? This video is going to show you how I set up the movement repo on GitHub and why I'm doing it this way. And it also kind of help in when you start to go to look for files, you'll have an idea of how to navigate the movement repo, all right? So when I was looking for a repo, I had some requirements. I wanted all the files to be in one spot to make them easy to find and download. I wanted version control for hardware files as well as software files. And what that means is basically I want to be able to upload binaries to the repo. And I don't expect them to compare the binaries, but at least I can keep the binary files up there. And that's important for the hardware files. I needed bug and feature tracking, of course. I wanted to support Git and maybe Subversion, because I currently use Subversion here at Muxall. I wanted it to be easy to use and to maintain, all right? And we might touch on that a little bit later when we start setting it up. I wanted unlimited users, and I also want it to be popular, because the good side of having a popular hosting site for the repo, like GitHub or SourceForge, is people have heard of them. They know it's not some hacker website or hosting site, right? It's pretty well trusted, right? The bad part of hosting on a popular website is it can be targeted by criminals, because it is popular. And the last thing I wanted for a requirement for a repo is some kind of forum for people to ask questions, kind of like a support forum, I guess. So version control / code file repository type websites I looked at were GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, and SourceForge. And I know there's more out there, but these seem to be the biggest ones that popped up when I was searching on Google. And I chose GitHub because it has a large community. It uses Git or Subversion, and it checked most of the boxes up here on the requirements. So and plus GitHub and SourceForge were actually the only two I'd ever heard of. so it really came down to those two, and when I was choosing, and I just chose GitHub. Okay, so here's the current Subversion repo layout we have at Muxall, and so at the very top right here is the the repo name, and then we have the root repo. It's sometimes people just use slash. I gave it a name, and then in Subversion you have your trunks, you have your branches, and then you have your tags. And at Muxall we never use the tags, but we do use the branches, and I don't really use the trunk, and the reason why is the branches are associated with the model number of Muxall, or movement, the Muxall movement, right? And there's good things for this. It ties the hardware to the software. So you know that Model 2 hardware will work with Model or MX 2 branch software, right? The bad thing is it ties the software to the hardware, which makes it pretty inflexible and kind of limits you. And so the better. And by the way, on the bad about tying it to the hardware is in Subversion you're supposed to push your branch. You develop on the branch, and then when you're done, you push it up into the trunk. Well, since the software is tied to the hardware, you can't do that, right? Because you would be mixing different versions of hardware. So the better solution would be the software detects the hardware version, but oh man, this just adds a whole layer of complexity to the code. So I wasn't too thrilled about that. And then under the model numbers, then we come out, and these are actually the projects, automation-based platform, and the clock, and the web GUI, and there's some other ones I didn't add on here. And oh, by the way, this is, according to Subversion, this is projects as a branch siblings layout. And that's all one hyphenated word, at least in their documentation. So, and I put hybrid because it's not exactly the way they described it, and actually they don't even suggest it. All right. The new GitHub repo layout is going to be a little different, right? So we're going to get rid of the MX model number from the branches, okay? Oh, and by the way, so in GitHub, you start with a user, which in this case is Muxall, and then you give it you can build repos. So one user can have many repos, right? So you give it a repo name, and our repo is going to be called movement, right? And then once you create that repo, then you come down here and you create, well, it has a default master branch, right? Which in Subversion they called the trunk. And then you have your different branches. And I guess I didn't add it on here. They also support tags, but it would be down here somewhere, right? So yeah, so instead of giving it the model number, we're going to give the branch just a version, right? So 0.3, 0.4, and that way it's good because the software is no longer tied to the hardware, right? And what's also good though is the hardware is still tied to the software, because we're going to add a hardware folder or project, if you will, underneath the software branch 0.3 or 0.4, what have you, right? And so that way, if you're making, if you're using branch 0.3, you'll know exactly what hardware you need because it will be under that branch, and vice versa. If you're wanting to build a MX3, for instance, and you go into the hardware folder, you get your PCB files, and you know exactly what software to tie it to use with it, right? You know you can't use 0.4. So one of the problems I had though was how do I associate versions of software with the videos I make? So let's say I make a video and 6 months from now well, these versions are going to, we're going to have many changes to that branch in 6 months. So if you're watching a 6-month-old video, you're going, well, this doesn't even, the software load doesn't even match up to what the video's about, which will kind of make the videos useless, right? So the solution that I came up with, and I put a question mark there because I'm not sure it's the greatest solution, but we're going to give it a shot anyway, right? And that's to use the tags, also known as releases in GitHub. Every video will have will be associated with a tag in Subversion. So video 2, for example, might have a tag, and I don't know where I'm going to put it, in the video maybe, or in the comments. I haven't really decided. But anyway, it will have a tag associated with it. And that way you'll be able to, if you're watching a video, that's 6 months old, you'll be able to go back in time, find that tag associated with that video, and download just the software that matches exactly what's in the video. So anyway, that's kind of my theory on how to do that. I really hope it works. So so that was an interesting dilemma I ran into, but it makes sense to me. We'll see. Okay, so what's next? We need to create the Muxall movement repo, all right? And GitHub suggests that every open source project should include in the root directory, or the master directory, I guess, or master branch, I should say, the README file, license file, contributing file, and code of conduct file. And I started to kind of go through what was in each one of these files, but I decided that if you're interested, you can go look at them. They're not very interesting. The license file was a little bit interesting because I struggled with what kind of license to use, and I just decided to use MIT license, which is pretty much free for all. Okay. All right. So, and then after that, we'll go through the GitHub's pre-launch checklist. We're not going to do that in this video. I think this video is going to be too long as it is, so that might be another video. Okay. And so that's about it. So let's get started setting up that repo. Okay, so let's take a look at the desktop here, how I have it set up. And the web page is on my user account, the Muxall user account, and it lists the different repositories that I have. And right now we just have this Hello World repository right here that I was using to test different things with GitHub. All right, and I wanted to kind of go through it a little bit before I made this video. So, okay, so the first thing we're going to, and the second thing here is I have the repo layout, how I was going to lay out the repo in GitHub. All right. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a repo. So just click on this plus sign here. New repository. We're going to call it movement. All right. And we're going to call it the Muxall movement repo. All right. And it's asking, and so it is going to be public. And we'll go ahead and have it initialize it with a README, because those are one of the files that we need. All right. And this README file is basically kind of like the home page for the repository. And it's, you can format it. I think they call it Markdown. You can, and if you've seen different repos, you'll know that it can look pretty much like a web page. All right. and we'll modify that as time goes on. All right, so the next file that we need is a license file. So we're going to create a file. And I have learned, if you just start typing in license, you'll see to the right here it says choose a license template. So it knows I'm creating a license file. And we're going to use the MIT license for now, which is pretty much completely open. All right, so I clicked on that, and it looks like it's going to populate some data in here, and we're just going to change this to Muxall. All right, I think the rest of this stuff is okay. We'll review and submit it, and there it is. Commit new file. Oh, and it's asking to commit it to a new branch. We don't need to do that. We're going to commit it directly to the master branch. All right. All right, so the next two files we're going to create. One is the contributing file. All right. And we're going to commit that. And you notice it didn't populate that automatically. It doesn't have a script to populate that for you, because I guess you have to make it up yourself. So we're going to go ahead and commit that. It's just going to be a blank file for now. And we're also going to create the code of conduct. Oh, actually it does have a template for code of conduct. So let's choose that. Okay, here you go. Recommended for all projects of all sizes. Okay, so we'll just click that. Email address is moiot@muxall.com. All right. That's how you're going to contact me, and that I know is coming from GitHub. And it's for the Muxall, MOIOT just stands for Muxall Open IoT. All right, so review and submit that. And commit that directly to the master branch. All right. So, looks like we've got the recommended documents that they want in the root directory completed. Okay, so before we move on, I want to add some notes to the README and the contributing. Okay, and so we'll just click on this README first, and we're going to edit it. And I'm just going to copy and paste some notes that I have here in here. And these are notes actually from GitHub. So these are all the topics that they suggest that you put in the README file. And I'm sure this will change over time, but it's a good starting point. So, okay, we added those. Oh, let's preview it. Yeah, so now it's just one huge, continuous, long sentence. And I actually kind of ran into this when I was testing it in the Hello World, so I knew this was going to happen. And I tinkered around with it, and so I you can put extra spaces or carriage returns in between each one of these lines. Or if you know HTML, you can put a little break in here. Or I think you can actually use a star. Let's do a break on this one. Let's try a star here. I think that tells it it's a bullet item. I'm not familiar with the Markdown language. That's what that MD, I think, on here stands for, is Markdown. So let's preview those. And okay. So here's the space. Oh, here's the space. Here's the line break. So it does accept the HTML markup language. And then our little bullet items. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change everything to bullet items. Take this break out of here. All right. Let's preview that. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit these changes. We're just going to commit them directly to the master branch for now. All right, very good. Let's go back to our repo. And I'm going to add some notes to the contributing document as well. So we're going to edit this. All right, let's preview that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Although, under code conventions, this is supposed to be indented. So I'm going to try to, let's see if we can just add a tab to that and see what happens. Preview. Oh, yeah, that looks better. Okay, yeah, so that looks good. All right, so let's go ahead and submit these, or commit them directly to the master branch again. Okay. All right, good. So now we've got a README with a bunch of things to do, code of conduct with a bunch of things to do. Contributing is done, I think. I'll have to look at that a little bit closer. And the license is done. All right, so I think we've got a lot of the paperwork at least started, and the suggested files populated in the root directory, as GitHub suggests. Okay, so at this point in time, I am done with the master branch. I don't plan on ever pushing anything back up to it. So I want to create a new branch. And we're going to call it the .03 branch, or the 0.3 branch. All right. So you just type in 0.3 and then click on create from master. Yep. All right. So now you'll see that we're on the 0.3 branch, which is basically a replica of everything we just put in the master. So when we look at our layout here, I just wanted to point this out. Time goes in this direction. Okay? And that little arrow is hard to see. So this is the start. We created the user. We created the repo. It as a default master branch. We put some initial files in there. And now we've created the 0.3 branch. Okay? Everything we do in the 0.3 branch is never going to get pushed back up into the master branch. Also, when we branch off the 0.3 branch to the 0.4 branch, anything we do in 0.4 branch is not going to get pushed back up into the 0.3 branch. Think of it as you can't go backwards in time. You can only go forward. So tags are a little bit of a different story. These tags right here, they mark points in time. So if let me move this down a little bit. If we move our 0.4 branch down here, then we draw a line. So between the master branch and branch 0.3 we just created was a matter of minutes, really. The 0.4 branch might be created 6 months later, or 3 months later, or a month. Doesn't matter. Time's always going down in this drawing. Tags, on the other hand, are points in time along this timeline right here. So at different points in time, we're going to tag this branch. All right? So 0.3.0, 0.3.1, there may be a week, 2 weeks between these, right? And the reason why I'm doing this is so I can align the videos up with the different tags. But all the changes we're going to be making in these projects right here are going to get pushed all the way back up into the 0.3 branch. Because remember, these are just tags. Okay, they're not branches. So when we make changes here, the changes will get pushed up into this branch. And then when we create the 0.4 branch, it'll have the same look. It'll have different tags, and all the changes will get pushed back up into that branch. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to do is I want to set the default branch now to the 0.3 branch, because we're never going to push anything back up into the master branch, right? I'm going to click on branches here. And right now the master is set as the default. But I'm going to click on change the default branch. And I'm going to set it to the 0.3 branch. Okay, so back to what we're doing. I want to create these subdirectories. And I know they're hanging off a tag here, but they will actually be in the branch. So let's set this back to branch 0.3. And we're going to create a new directory. And this is strange. You have to, I don't know if you saw that. Let me go back. You have to click on, to create a directory, you have to create, to create a directory, you have to create a new file, okay? And then you have to name your file. Let's just call it ABP base, all right? Then you do a space and a /. GitHub will not allow you to create an empty directory. So I want to put a README in here. Now I have not tested this, so I'm not sure how it's going to work. Okay. Now I'm just going to say in this README, this is the ABP base code. All right. And we're just going to commit this directly to the 0.3 branch. All right. So let's go up here to movement. So this is our root repo. It's in defaults to branch 0.3. Now you can see I've got a folder here called ABP base. And here's my README. Excellent. Okay. So I'm just going to keep doing that for the rest of the folders. Okay, there we go. We're all done with that. So that's all fine and dandy. But what happens if you just want to download a hardware directory? There is no way in GitHub, using the GUI, to download just the directory. You have to click on it and then download the individual files. Like right click on it and save link as and that sort of stuff, right? And that's kind of a pain. So for the software guys, the base, the clock, and the web GUI are all kind of interconnected. So you pretty much need them all. The hardware guys aren't going to really experience that, and they probably don't want all that stuff on their computer. But unless you're going to use Git, which, I don't know, maybe a lot of hardware guys use Linux boxes, and there may be Git for Windows. I don't really know. I haven't investigated it that much. You'll have to download the files one at a time, or you just have to, download everything as like a zip file. You download it as a zip, and then just on your Windows machine, and then you'll just have to open it up and then go through all the subdirectories until you get to the hardware and where you can get to the files that you want. And I'll keep looking around to see if I can find easier ways to do that. I have not found any yet. So I hope all this made sense. I know it's kind of confusing, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments under the video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That always helps. And I will see you next time.